Okay, this rule video will cover the replacement segment and the look at replacement points. There are basically two different types of replacement points, infantry and armour, though you can have an optional paratroop replacement type, which I was starting to look at, but I'm decided I'm not going to bother with it. It's just extra complexity, and I want to keep this game as simple as I can, because it's an optional rule. So three different sources for these replacements. You've got turn-based stuff, which you roll for on a table based on date. You've got your REM replacements, which are generated from your losses in battle, and there are German Feldestats battalions, which are like an organic divisional replacement. It's available to certain German divisions. Right, so even though I said there's infantry type replacements, they can be used to place lots of different types of units. So if we have a quick look here, you can see that infantry can be used for all those different types of units, and armour, yet again, can be used for all these. Some units, like Panzer Grenadiers, actually use a combination of infantry and armour replacements. That's worth knowing. Airborne, we've decided to use the standard rules, so you've got to use 2 infantry replacements to replace 1 step of airborne. Artillery, a bit of an oddball one. It costs 2 armoured replacement points to build 1 artillery unit. There's certain restrictions: air points, ships, German static artillery, commando and ranger type units can never receive replacement points or be rebuilt. Airborne, they can't actually receive any to the 8th of June. And there's also special rules for replacements in the Khotan Peninsula. Right, so your turn-based RPs are coming from your daily replacement charts. So if you see these, there's a daily Allied replacement chart and there's a daily German replacement chart. Now the Allies is pretty fixed. You roll 1 die, and that 1 die applies to the US and to Commonwealth, and that'll give you a fixed number of replacement points each day. Germans, theirs is slightly different based on the actual month as well. You're getting different replacement values depending on that. Yet again, you roll 1 dice per day, and that'll give you a fixed amount. Your next type of replacements come from battlefield losses. So if you look on these charts over here, you can see they've got, ignore the parabole ones, I'm going to remove them in a second. You can see that you've got a track of step losses, infantry and armour step losses. And every time you lose a step, you record that on that chart during the turn in which it happens. When you reach a 5, you reset your step loss to 0 for that particular type, and you increase the REM replacement rate for that type by 1 up to a maximum of 10. The more observant of you will say, well, there's only 5 boxes there, but actually you can flip those replacements over and there's a +5 marker on the other side. Okay, these replacements become available at the start of the next term. Once they're used, obviously they're ticked off this chart. Right, your replacements can be used in the replacement phase to either rebuild units that have suffered step losses, like reduced units, or even companies which could be rebuilt back into 3-step units. there's a series of rules. There's another thing. You can obviously rebuild completely eliminated units as well by expending the right number of replacements. For replenishing, basically the selected unit must be in general supply, and it can even receive replacements if it's in an enemy zone of control. Eliminated battalion size units, you have to expend the necessary replacements. You don't have to rebuild it entirely, but you could just rebuild one step of it, but you've got to be adjacent to an in-supply division or corps HQ, or even an allied beachhead to do it. You're not allowed to do that type of reconstruction in an enemy zone of control or a prohibited hex. A unit that actually receives replacements like that cannot actually fight or perform any action in the turn that it receives the replacement. But it can do in the following phases. Hold on, just scrap that. A unit that receives replacements may move and fight normally in the following phases, so just ignore that previous sentence I said. As I've mentioned, certain types of units use different combinations to rebuild, and like this particular table here will show you all the different types and what type of replacement is needed to rebuild it. For example, mechanised infantry Panzer Grenadier, it's an infantry one to build the one step, then an armour to do 2 steps, then another infantry to finish the 3 steps. The Germans also have field replacements, which are like organic to the German divisions. If you look at a division over here, for example, there's an HQ over there. It's got 3 field replacements built into it. They can only be used to rebuild units of that division, and they can never be replenished. Once they've been expended, they're gone. Another thing to remember about them is they count against stacking. So an HQ normally has a stacking level of 1, but if it's got 3 field replacements with it, it has a stacking level of 3. Right now, there is a total stacking limit of 6 steps, but even if a division had 6 field replacements, it still can stack with 1 other unit. That is a bit of a special rule that I'll probably forget while I'm doing it. Now there are some optional rules about allies using how they used replacements to just bring in green troops to keep units up to full strength, and that produces it did produce some bizarre effects on the allied units. They could end up taking a lot of casualties because those green troops would just didn't know what they were doing. Now I'm not going to use that rule because I think it's adding a bit of complexity, which I don't really want, because this is a big game as it is already. So the thing I've got to do is basically throw for my daily replacements for both Germany and the Allies, and then I've got to start using some of these REM units that I'll have accumulated to actually do some rebuilds. So I'll do that off video.